Hey everybody, welcome to a Cricut craft tutorial. Today we are going to make a key holder. So I'm going to use a wood sign cutout thing. Got it from Joann Fabrics. I got this little hook here from Home Depot and I just screwed it in. So we're going to go ahead and paint this white because I'm going to make it so that it matches my kitchen. I'm just going to use some acrylic paint. Got this at Home Depot a couple Christmases ago. And for me, I don't really need a lot of paint for this. I'm just going to put down a piece of wax paper to protect my desk. So we're going to go ahead and put down a little piece of wax paper just so we don't get any paint on it. And I actually usually just squirt my paint right onto my project. That way you don't waste any paint on the, on a plate or something, but with acrylic paint, not really a big deal. And then I'm just using kind of a softer bristle brush, and I'm just gonna brush it on. This is actually gonna sit in our kitchen, and our kitchen is all done in mason jars and teal and gray. So I wanted to do a white so that it wouldn't blend with the wall. We are gonna go ahead and apply our mason jar right onto this after it's been painted. So it should be pretty easy to do. It's just a fun project. You could get this done in a day. Actually, really probably just an hour once the paint dries. And this is just something that you guys can do. And these make great wedding gifts. If you know how your friends have their house decorated, these make great Mother's Day gifts, things like that. And they're really easy and super inexpensive. This wood piece was, I think, just a couple of dollars. I want to say at most it was $3. I don't usually buy these, but I bought it because I had this inspiration and I didn't want to wait for the weather to warm up here in Ohio in order for my husband to have time to go out in the garage and cut me one. And I don't usually spend a lot on them, so I know that it wasn't very expensive. I'm going to make sure that I get all the way around the edges, and I don't really want this super thick because I don't mind that the wood grain's going to show through because our kitchen's really kind of rustic. So we're not going to put a really thick coat on here, but I am going to need just a little bit more paint in order to do this because it's not quite covering all the way. But you guys can rough this up a little bit more if you wanted to with some sandpaper, or you can paint it thicker if you would like to. It's all just a personal preference thing, but for us, our kitchen's kind of not super modern or anything, so this should look really good against it with the not perfect paint. So I'm not really putting a lot of effort into making sure that every little inch is perfectly covered because we don't want it to be so perfect. So all you're gonna do is pick your color paint, like I said, slap it on there, and then we'll let it dry. Acrylic paint dries pretty quickly, so you won't have to wait too long. But while it's drying, we're going to go over and we're going to get our mason jar ready to cut. I will have the link for the mason jar that I used in the comments below. And we will be able to have a lot of fun making this cute craft together. Okay, I've downloaded my mason jar from Etsy. This one is not in a zip folder, so you don't have to unzip it or anything. You just need to find where it downloaded to. In mine, it downloaded to my downloads folder, so I'm going to go find it in my downloads. It's called Mason Jar. We're going to go ahead and insert that. So it's going to bring it up just like this. With this one, we don't have to do any kind of cleaning up because it's already done for us because it's an SVG. So we're going to save our file. And we're going to go ahead and click on it and insert the image because we're going to need to resize this based on the size of our board. Now, I'm going to put some paper flowers on it so that it kind of matches our theme. So I'm just going to measure my board, and I know that I've got probably about 4.5 inches, maybe 5 inches at the most to work with. So I want to resize this at all. We're going to do that here. So you can either size it one of two ways. You can do it by grabbing this little arrow down here and squeezing it or pulling it back out, or if you know the space that you want to work with. So I'm going to do about 4.5 inches. You can just type that up here where it says size, And under height, I put 4.5 inches. And what that does is it's just automatically going to size it. I think that's a pretty good size for our project today. So we're going to go ahead and click Make It. I'm going to scoot all my other junk out of the way so that we can get this cut while this dries, and then we can weed it while it dries as well. I always like to paint my projects first before I make them, because then while you're making your designs, you can let them dry. So let's go ahead and we're going to make this, and I'll show you guys it cutting and loading the mat and all of that, and then we can apply it to our project. Okay, we have our dial set to vinyl. We're going to use a matte vinyl on this one, and it is a 651. We're going to load our mat. We are going to click the Cricut Go button, and it's going to go ahead and cut out our project. I'm using kind of a scrap piece of vinyl, so it's nothing super fancy or anything, but as you can see, I've cut out a bunch of parts. We're going to let this cut out, and then we'll get it all weeded, and then once the sign dries, we can apply it, and then I can show you guys the paper flowers that we're going to put on. Okay, I'm going to show you guys a quick trick because I have a new super sticky mat, so I didn't push this down real hard. That's one trick. The other one is if it's not peeling real well, flip the mat over, and you're just going to bend your mat away from your vinyl. So you're just going to pull it really lightly away. My mat has become less sticky since I've been using it, which is a good thing, but when everybody gets those new mats, they all complain they're so sticky, and I rip my projects, and I have ripped mine several times. So I just wanted you guys to know there are a couple ways to remove them really safely, and that's one of them. So now we've cut out our design. I'm just going to trim it out of my vinyl real quick. And like I said, I used a mat, and it's not like a super shiny one, which I kind of like for the style that we're going for. Let me move you guys down a little bit. So I'm going to weed this really quick for you guys, and hopefully this won't be too hard to weed. The mat usually cuts pretty nicely, but sometimes I get them and they just don't want to cut. There is a matte vinyl setting in your customs setting. I've tried it. I haven't liked it. So I think it's just a personal preference thing with these, but we're going to weed out all this area we don't need. And with some of these, it helps to have the picture up next to you so that you can see what parts you're supposed to weed out and what parts are supposed to stay. I've weeded this one several times. I've used this on a lot of different projects, so I kind of like know where all my pieces parts are. But with this matte vinyl, because it's not shiny at all, it is sometimes pretty difficult to see your lines. So you could use a light pad, and I have a really nice light pad that I got off of Amazon for $24.99. It works with a USB, so it's all just USB powered, so you can either plug it directly into your computer to run it, or you can use like a cell phone type wall plug, and you can plug it into that to use it. But I will put a link to that below. I really, really like it. It has a lot of different brightness settings. You can put it all the way bright and it is like blinding, or you can have it more dim. It's just a matter of personal preference on that one. But I really like it, and I think for the price versus, you know, some of the other ones that I've seen out, it's a great deal. Now, see, this is going to be a pain because see how it's, I don't know how well you guys can see, but it's peeling my letters up as I'm going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Cricut scraper, and I'm going to just press this down a little bit. And sometimes this helps have those letters adhere a little bit better. So we're just going to lightly press all over our design. Make sure that you don't rip your design while doing that, but sometimes this helps the letters stay if they're still lifting, and that's why I do it this way. Like, I fold my vinyl back versus pulling it straight up and down, because if you fold your vinyl, you can usually get your stickers to, or your vinyl pieces to stay. I'm also going to trim it so that I'm not cutting off. I'm only trying to do one part of a word instead of like more than one word as I go. And I'm just going to kind of check because I can see the V, but I can't seem to find it on this side. So I found my V, so I'm just going to pull it out, and I'm going to try to keep pulling it real lightly here. And I'm going to do that same thing where I'm just going to trim this little edge right here so that I'm only doing the top of these letters right now, because I don't want to try to fight with them any more than I have to. Like I said, the matte vinyl, for whatever reason, is just a pain when to weed. But I promise, once it's done, it's so worth it because it's so pretty when it's all finished. Make sure that if you are trimming your vinyl away from your project like I am, where you're just cutting little snippets, that you are not snipping the tails of your letters, because that can happen. So you just want to be really careful with what you're snipping away. It's just a matter of kind of watching what you're doing really closely. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this chunk off. And that way it's out of my way while I try to do the rest. I'm going to go ahead and do the rest off camera. That way you guys aren't stuck watching this. But just take your time with this matte vinyl. It's always been like this to me. It's not the easiest product to use, but it's so worth it in the end because it looks so pretty when you're done. Okay, we got this all weeded, so we are going to apply our transfer tape. I just use contact paper. It's a lot easier than like any of the other ones that I've tried. So all we do is place our contact paper on our image, and we just want to make sure the whole image is covered. And then you want to take your Cricut scraper and you want to press on all the piecey parts of your image. And you want to make sure that you press really well on the little pieces that aren't attached to the major part. So you want to make sure that you press all of those letters really, really well. You want to make sure that you press the edges really well. Once you've done that, you'll check and see if it's going to come up with your transfer tape off the backing. And it usually comes off pretty easily. Sometimes you'll have a little stubborn piece like this one. If I have a stubborn piece, I'll usually just press it a little bit with my finger to get it started, and then it'll usually stick just fine. Sometimes the bottom doesn't want to stick all the way, but we'll see if we can get those to... Yep, okay, everything has stuck. Our design has dried. So let me slide this back over here so you guys can see it. We're going to slide our wood sign back over. I'll move this a little bit so you guys can see. And all we're going to do is place our mason jar kind of wherever we think it should go. And I think that looks pretty good, pretty centered. You can use a ruler or a laser level to get your items centered. I've always been pretty good about just eyeballing it. And now all you want to do is press. And you're going to need to press this one pretty hard. And you're going to want to, again, make sure that you do press those letters really well. And you're going to want to make sure that you press all around the edges. And then any of those parts that you know that didn't want to come off of your transfer tape, those are usually going to not want to come off of your, they're not going to want to stick to your project either for some reason. So we're just going to press, 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 press. And then we're going to go ahead and see if it will stick. This part you're going to want to do relatively slowly, because you want to make sure that all of your letters and all of your little pieces of your design are going to stay on your project. If you have a little stubborn piece that maybe isn't staying very well, you can just re-rub that piece. Just place your transfer tape right back over it, and you can just rub that piece right back. Get stuck under the hook here. So we're just going to peel, 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 lots of peeling. And there we go. So the next thing we're going to do is put in our paper flowers. Now I pre-made a bunch of flowers, and I will link the tutorial below for you guys to show you how I made these. But these are the paper flowers that I'm going to use. And I'm only going to probably put like 3 of them on here. I don't really want this to be crazy full. And I'm just going to use some tacky glue for this one. I usually use a hot melt glue, but I'm going to just use a tacky glue. And you guys can make these different sizes. I have the SVG linked to this in my tutorial on how to make these. So all we're going to do is we're going to take some tacky glue, and preferably an open bottle would be much more helpful to me. I thought that one was open, and it's not. Let me find my open bottle. There we go. I think that one's open. I swear, I thought I had opened a tacky glue, but I didn't. But like I said, you can use any kind of glue you want. I use hot melt glue when I make them. I use hot melt glue most of the time for my glue because it dries really fast, but this tacky glue actually works very well as well. So we're just going to place our flower, and we're just going to hold it in place until it's pretty stable. This is why I like the hot melt glue when I do these, because you don't have to hold it quite as long. And you can just stick it on, and then we're going to tacky glue this one. And there's lots of different types of flowers you guys can make. These are just the ones that I do, and I use these for my wedding. And they've been very, very popular. Everyone always asks me, oh, how did you make them? So I put up a tutorial, so if you guys want to learn how to make these ones. I just think these come out a little bit more even than the rolled ones. And they were a little bit faster for me to like learn how to do them than the rolled ones. But I do also have a tutorial on the rolled, and I'll put that below as well. Oh, tacky glue. So tacky, so annoying. And then we're just going to put a yellow one. And tacky glue does dry clear, so you don't have to worry about if you splooged a little on your vinyl or anything like that. So I'm just going to put those 3 flowers on. Like I said, these ones are a little bit big, but all the flowers in our kitchen that I made are this style and this size. So all we're going to do, oops, is press that on a little bit better. Fix him. Okay. And our project is, once the glue dries, finished. So this is what it looks like, and it's just going to be a really cute key holder. It's going to hang in our kitchen. Super easy to do. As you guys saw, this craft really didn't take any time. It only took probably 15 minutes for the paint to dry enough because I put a thin layer on. I did not Mod Podge this or anything to seal it because you don't really need to. This stuck just fine to the paint. As long as it's going to be in the house, you really shouldn't have to worry about any of that type of stuff. If you guys have any questions, please make sure you leave those below. I'm happy to answer them. If you have any tutorials you'd like to see, let me know as well in the comments. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. I put out new videos all the time, and I hope you guys really enjoyed this craft.